Okay, let's go ahead and get started with class. I'll read you the names in a minute. Sometimes when I rush into class, I get discombobulated. So I've got it. Let me quickly try. Josh, Vanessa, Eric, Priya, Helen, Frank, Yana?
Yes.
James? Jared, Yana, and Safik? Safik. Okay, great. Got the name text to help me. I'm Professor Williams. If you ask me what I prefer being called Professor Williams. If you're not comfortable with that, people in my professional life call me Zach. That's fine too, but I get to come here and I get excited about teaching you in addition to the other communication stuff I do, and so I do like it when I get to be professor. So this is one of the most exciting things that I get to do in my profession, in my career. I get to have you for a whole quarter. I get to assign you some assignments, and I get a long time to help you with your communication skills. So I'm really excited to be here. I've been at Rutgers for a year and a half. Before that, I taught at some other MBA programs. Before that, I developed a business where I coach people on communication skills. I'll tell you a little bit about how I got into this business, how I became someone who could teach other people communication skills, and then we'll start with the mechanics of the class over the next 9 weeks, and we'll start in with our material for class 1. So, briefly, my story. I started this business 5-6 years ago. Way before that, I used to be an actor, and I learned what you might imagine an actor would learn about communication skills. How to use good eye contact, good body language, how to infuse content with the right amount of dramatic flair. Long story short, I went a different direction from that. I went to business school, started working in finance, and worked in asset management in New York for a couple of years. That was an interesting experience coming from an acting background and some stuff I was doing professionally, acting, to being in a very corporate setting, which I feel like I benefited from greatly, but I ultimately decided I wanted to do what I do now, which is coach people on communication skills. And I draw on my business experience to relate it to the things that you all are probably working with in terms of your presentations, but the techniques, the content of the class, a lot of it is based on my acting experience. So we will do acting type exercises, but I've thought very carefully about how those creative types of things are going to be beneficial to you in the professional settings in which you operate. So, for class today, we got the greeting. All right, that's the greeting. Then we'll go over the course. I'll work through the syllabus. Then I'll start with our discussion for today. 2 keywords for discussion today. One is objective, the other is conclusion. The objective being the idea that when you make a presentation, you want to have a goal, an objective, and that's going to unleash your potential as a presenter. And the second thing we'll talk a lot about are how you as business students are going to draw conclusions after looking at data. And you're going to present to people what the conclusions are. They're not in the points in your career where you're going to be just reciting data. You're going to be telling people what the data means, and that's going to work into your presentation. And I'll make sure you have all the information you need for your oral presentation where you're going to be presenting that conclusion next week. And then we'll talk about how you can write that conclusion, and I'll make sure you have all the information for how you can write those clear conclusions in your writing assignment, which is going to be due 2 weeks from today. With that, let me work through the syllabus. Spend about 10-15 minutes seeing if you have any questions about the structure of the class. All right. My information is at the top. I'm here on Mondays. Try to get here a little early. I have an office on the 10th floor. If you need to see me, have any other extra questions, you can probably email me is the best way, but I will be here before class and after class. Next page. All right, academic integrity. Let's talk about this for 1 second. I was thinking as I was preparing my lecture for today that I want to put this page, the next classes at the end, because it's kind of a serious subject we need to talk about, and I really don't know you yet, and all of a sudden it's a really serious academic integrity discussion. But I've learned in my experience through teaching that it's important to just talk about this very clearly. because I've seen a lot of things happen that are mistakes that just get very difficult and very tragic with academic integrity. In particular, plagiarism in some of the writing assignments. I've seen problems with that in past classes that I've taught, and I want to go over some of the reasons why I've seen that and how we might be able to definitely avoid that. And this is not a discussion, if you're familiar with plagiarism, that's going to be anything new. It's just, let's talk for 1 second, make sure everything's clear. Because there's a very specific procedure if there's any sort of academic integrity violation of Rutgers. Because you're grad students and because of the way the system is set up, I'm required to go through a certain reporting process, and I can't handle it myself. And if some sort of academic integrity thing happens, it's probably going to be the most stressful event in your entire life. And so let's just talk for a minute about how we can avoid that. So, the main thing I've dealt with in this class is plagiarism, which is taking someone else's words and using it in your assignments without attributing the source to that, without saying this comes from this source or this is what this person said. And everyone's heard of plagiarism before, right? Anyone not heard of plagiarism before? Okay, so it's just taking someone else's words and not saying this is who said it and this is the source. A couple of things that have happened in the past. One, students have just kind of cut and paste articles they find on the internet and put them into the assignments that are due for this class. I definitely encourage you not to do that. It's not going to help you with your learning progress, and it's a violation of academic integrity. It's something we definitely want to avoid. That's number one. Number two, I've had students that were confused about what plagiarism is and thinking that maybe if they copy a sentence or a short paragraph, that's not really plagiarism. But that is not correct. Anytime you copy more than 3 words in a row without attributing the source, that constitutes plagiarism. Number 3, I have dealt with students who have sometimes looked to internet or written sources because they have trouble with English. English is not their first language. So they have looked at sources and thought, what's the best way I can say this? And that's fine to look at various writing sources as a good, effective way to speak and a good, effective way to write, but as long as you just use that as a model, as long as you don't copy any of those words from the internet source that you're looking at and put it in your paper without attributing. And lastly, number 4, and a problem I haven't covered, is some of the writing assignments I go over in this class, I'm very particular about the structure. I try to encourage you to write in a very clear structure, and I lay out how I want you to do it. Sometimes students have made the mistake of thinking, as long as they follow the structure, that's the goal of the assignment. But that's not correct. I will have a structure that I want to encourage you to write in for some of the assignments we have in this class, but I want to get all your original work, all your thoughts, all your ideas. So when I'm reading your paper, and I'm thinking about how I can help you, how I can make you understand how something could be said a little bit differently in a little bit better organizational order, I will not have the experience of thinking, oh, this is just something they copied and pasted, so I'm wasting my time by helping the students. So I want it to be your original work, your writing, that I can help with. Any questions on that at all? And again, sorry to start with that serious downer discussion right off the bat, but I just had some really tough experiences where I really have no choice. I run everything through Safe Assign, and it comes back with a plagiarism score, and when I see big chunks of plagiarized work, I have to fill out a form, it has to go through a process, you have to wait several months. Every time you get an email, you panic, is this where they're going to bring me in and try to throw me out of school? It's probably not going to happen if you make one mistake, but it's going to be something that you just do not want to deal with. Okay, so let's move on. Attendance and preparation. So this is a communication class. You need to be here and actively participate to get the most out of the class. There's no exam at the end of the class. The learning, the work you do is going to be related to your participation in this class. With that, I grade on class participation, a very large chunk of your grade. Each class, and we'll we'll have 8 classes, right? We were supposed to have 9, and now we have 8. Is that right? Yeah, so we'll have 8 classes. It's not. It's not. Yeah, it's not. All right, so now we only have 8. So, and after today, we only have 7. So, I will give you a class participation grade each and every class, and you'll be able to see your grade on Blackboard. 3 points just for coming to class and pretending to participate. 4 points for offering a couple of contributions, a couple of suggestions, a couple of ideas. 5 points for significantly contributing to class. Significantly contributing to class means doing the exercises, means looking at your fellow students, critiquing their performance, thinking about content we've discussed in previous classes and how it relates to the exercise we might be doing at that point. It's helpful for everyone. You all have diverse perspectives on how things could be, should be presented, things that I may not see. And you, as each other's colleagues, you're going to value each other's opinions about what is effectively presented, what moved you, what made you want to invest, what made you want to listen to the speaker. Additionally, it's a good chance for you to practice speaking up in a professional environment. This hopefully is not as intimidating as a scary boardroom when you're starting out in your career, but still there's a level of professionalism here that you may not feel when you're hanging out with your friends. It's a good chance to think to yourself, gosh, I want to contribute on this. What's a succinct way I can make a contribution and add something to my colleagues? So I'll give you 0 through 5 on each class, and you can see that on Blackboard. If you have any questions, please ask me. I would discourage you, I ask you not to use cell phones or laptops during this class. There's really no need for laptops. Everything is on our slides. A lot of the work we do is standing up, moving around, various gesture, eye contact exercises. Cell phones also, I definitely encourage you to keep off. We don't want to interrupt the class with ringing, obviously. But another thing I notice, and you will notice when you're up here trying to present to your students, when trying to give them an impassioned presentation that really means something to you, and you see someone look under their desk and start to do one of these, you can tell when you lost someone's attention to a cell phone. So please leave them off, leave them in your pocket, and concentrate on class. All right. I will record each class, and I will make that available to you through a link on Blackboard. This is a valuable tool for critiquing your own presentation, looking back and thinking, oh, my hand gestures were really nervous, or whatever you want to work on with your presentation. I'll also use that as the class participation option. If you miss class, you can review the video and email a couple of comments. I think the instructions are 3 or 4 comments to your classmates. Review the video, say, hey Priya, I really love the way you presented that thing on investing. And I like the way you use the eye contact technique we taught to use this slide and that slide. That's one good comment. And you can use the Blackboard email function where you can just email the entire class, and we can benefit from your comments that way. I mentioned to Priya earlier that this is the first time I've taught full-time MBA students during the day, but when I teach nighttime MBA students or part-time, they always have a great excuse as to why they can't make it to multiple classes. Hopefully you'll all be a little more consistent, but if you need to miss watching the video and sending comments is available to you. All right, so let's turn to page 4. This is going to give us our schedule for the next 8 weeks. Last week, of course, we had a snow day, no class. Hope you enjoyed that. Next week, this week, today, course overview, which we're doing now, and we'll talk about this idea of a conclusion in a presentation. When you stand up here, you're going to present an important conclusion, and similarly, how you might do something like that in the writing. Next week, you will do oral presentations based on the information we go over today. I'll give you instructions on how you can come up with a presentation. You do a 2-minute presentation. We'll critique each other a little bit. And we will add some body language work in that class as we intersperse that. We'll intersperse that with the presentations. Class 3, we will go over some techniques for presenting technical data, presenting graphs, avoiding jargon, technical stuff that might confuse your audience. How are you going to present numbers in a concise, clear way? Go over some techniques, and we will do a team graph presentation exercise. At the end of class today, someone remind me, please. I will encourage you to form groups of 4 or so people. And I will give you a little chunk of data. It's a very brief assignment. I'll ask you to sit down with your classmates for half an hour, think about how you want to present that data. And then in class 3, I will give you some more time to work on that at the end of our session, and you'll present that using the presenting technical data skills we will have learned in that class. So, class 4 and 5 I have crunched together because of the snow day. So, class 3 you will learn presenting technical data stuff, and then in class 4 you will come prepared with a technical presentation with PowerPoint slides to make a presentation. Now, because of the snow day, we will not do all of those presentations. We'll see what we have time for, and I will work with you all as we get closer to that. So maybe we'll have 2 or 3 people just do the presentations so we can critique and think about how that reflects on the presenting technical stuff we learned in the previous week. And then we'll get on with class 5, which is emails, memos, text messages, social media, and that discussion. And those of you who are not going to be presenting, since you'll have a couple things to do for that class, we can work out a deal where you can submit it later and or present later if you'd like to. And then class 5, we'll be looking at communication skills and emails, memos, writing. We'll do some social media discussion. We've got a case. There's no textbook required for this class, but there is one case that I'd like you to purchase and read. It is Building Social Media Culture at Dell. How Dell Company encouraged their employees to use social media in an effective way, and what we can learn from that from a communication standpoint. And that brings us to class 6. We've got an on-camera workshop. I'm really excited about this. This is new material for me. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about how you can make an effective presentation on camera if, say you have an interview for your company, say you're giving a press conference, say you're doing some sort of video conference. What are some tools that can make you look a little more polished, a little more professional, make a better impression on the people who are on the other end of that camera? I have talked to a colleague of mine who is actually going to come in and guest lecture with me, a very talented actor. You may have seen him in a couple of things, but he's not like a star. He's just a very solid actor and a very good acting coach. He's going to work with me on camera angles. He's going to work with me on eye contact with the camera and some other stuff. So I'm excited about that. And I've got some scenarios which are later in which are a few pages down in the syllabus that I've asked you to take a look at. So I'll ask you to prepare for one of a few exercises. There's a web conference exercise. I'll say, 5 of you play these roles in the web conference, and I'll have half the group go to another class, get on the Skype or something, and we'll do the exercise that way. I've got another exercise where I've asked you to prepare an interview, and just got some other things that we'll do which will help us for that class, which we will talk more about in the coming weeks. But what you might want to do soon is just look over those roles in the syllabus and think about what entices you. Which role do you want to play for that class? That brings us to class 7 and class 8, which is emotional intelligence. Has anyone heard of emotional intelligence before? Yeah, what have you all heard about emotional intelligence?
It's the ability to perceive people, to perceive the emotional side, to communicate. To be able to read people and to say things in a way that could accept it.
That sounds great. All right, to understand someone's emotional state, to understand your own emotional state, and communicate in a way that's going to make a positive connection with that person. The first part of the class, we'll be talking about making presentations to groups. Then when we get to emotional intelligence, we'll think a little bit more about one-on-one communication. Suppose you have to have a difficult conversation with someone. Tell them that their performance is not very good and they need to improve it. How are you going to approach that in a way that's not going to put them into an emotional panic? Suppose you're stressed out about the conversation. You want to go in and ask your boss for a raise. All right, your heart starts beating before you go in there. All right, how am I going to manage that? How am I going to communicate it in a way that doesn't make me look nervous and silly? First class is a discussion of emotional intelligence content. Second class, class 8, is exercises with emotional intelligence. We'll do some games that are actually designed to frustrate you, so we can elicit that stress response and think about how you can communicate effectively in spite of things. Then last class, class 9, we will do improvisation for business folks. This is acting improv, improvisation scenes. Has anyone heard of improv before? Actors improv, what's that? What's improv?
So, in the supply chain skill development class, we had to give improv speech.
Okay.
We were given a topic which is very much very different to your life or something I've ever heard about. My improv speech was, if I was born, I'm born in Italy and why I want to live in Italy.
Okay. So you're given some sort of topic and you just need to make it up.
Yeah.
We'll do a little bit of that. We'll also do actual acting scenes. I'll have you be actors for a minute. Has anyone heard of why business people might do improv? What is the value you might get out of that as a business student? Yes?
They might ask questions that you don't know the answer to.
Yeah. You got to be able to think on your feet. You got to be spontaneous. You got to be creative. When you hear something in a team meeting that doesn't make sense right away, you got to be able to respond to it in a way that builds something that you're trying to accomplish in that meeting. You don't want to just say, oh, that doesn't fit in the way it looks in my department, so that's a bad idea. You got to be able to be open to it and have some creativity and spontaneity. So that I have found is a fun way to get at developing that skill. Any questions on anything so far? All right, so if you look on the next pages, you will see that I've broken down everything you need to know. Not everything you need to know. You need to come to class so we can discuss the exercises and discuss the assignments, but most of the things you need to know in terms of what's due, brief description, how it will be graded. For the oral conclusion, we've got the written conclusion, we've got the team graph presentations on page 6, which is a little chunk of data. Now you might want a soft copy of this syllabus because there are a number of links of things that I've asked you to read on the course outline that you probably don't want to type in yourself. So I emailed the soft copy to you last week. There's also a copy on Blackboard. So in addition to this hard copy to keep you on track, you're probably going to want access to those links. And another reason you might want a soft copy is this chunk of data for the team graph presentation. And I got some information on the technical presentation, some information on the Dell case discussion. Oh yeah, so there's when we do the Dell case discussion, there's a separate grade for that participation. So you'll get your 0 through 5 class participation grade for that class. You'll also get a 0 through 5 grade for contributing to the Dell discussion. I know you've got a lot of things going on, you read a lot of cases, but I'd encourage you to come prepared for that, because if you're not, it'll be an awkward, painful experience. So let's just kind of sit here. So tell us about Dell. Then there's a memo I will ask you to write after you go over how to construct an effective email and memo class. Then on page 8, we've got these on-camera exercise scenarios that I mentioned earlier. These are things that I would like you to prepare and bring to class 6. So when we start in class 6, me and my colleague will be here and we'll talk about ways to address the camera, angles, tone of voice, a lot of those types of things, and you will be ready with one of these roles. You can see the first scenario is a video conference of this annuity processing company. You can read the background and pick one of the roles that appeals to you. We'll see how effectively you can communicate that over a Skype scenario. The next scenario is a statistical graph discussion. There is a famous graph that was important to statistics of Napoleon's campaign into Russia in 1812. And it's somewhat of a complicated graph. So the 1, 2, or 3 people who do this are going to try to present that over a video conference type of environment. And we're going to think about some ways to do that effectively. If none of those appeal to you, or if you want to do something a little more personal, you could construct an interview. You can come up with something you want to be interviewed on, and work out some questions, and I'll set you up with an interviewer. We'll think about a way to get you a chance to practice doing an on-camera interview. And then the last one is a press conference. We've got a scenario. It's in 2010. BP had this big oil spill. Got a lot of bad publicity. And there's a press conference that the chairman of BP. And there's text for that. And then there's a way he dealt with questions after that. We'll talk about effective ways to do that, not so effective ways to do that. So take a look at those scenarios, think about what you would like to do, and we will, I think either next class or in 2 weeks, we will assign the roles and make sure everyone has something to do. Alrighty. Dell case summary. We'll do a write-up of the Dell case using a format that we'll go over today. And then the last assignment is an emotional intelligence summary essay. We'll do a write-up of what emotional intelligence is, how it can be effectively used in a business environment. We'll do a written assignment. That is it for the assignments. Next page is the grade breakdown. You can look at the point value of everything. As you can see, class participation is huge. You get a third of your grade. And there's a various number of points for each of the other assignments. And traditional grading curve, standard grading curve, hopefully nothing there should surprise you on page 14. Great, any questions about all that? No questions? All right, I'll try names one more time. Where can I say, I'll have the name tag, Josh. Okay, Priya, Helen, Frank, Jared. Young, Sagnik. Didn't look at the name tag. Ying Ying.
Yana.
Yana.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No problem.
Yana. What's your name?
Natalie.
Natalie. Okay. Good to meet you. I'm Professor Williams. And what's your name?
Johnny, which is Walker.
Yeah. I'm sorry. What's your name?
Johnny, J-I-N.
Zhao Yin.
Johnny.
Zhao Ning.
Yeah.
Zhao Ning. Great, great. And if you could close the laptop for now, we'll talk more about that if you desperately need it. We can work out the rest. Oh, okay. I've got some of this for you. Slides. Okay. Yes, great. Yes.
So I know that the way you have put in the points for participation, let's say if somebody falls sick, there's an emergency.
Yes. If someone misses class, can someone remind us what would you do for class participation points in that case? Yes. Yes. What's the video link? send email 3 to 4 insightful comments to the rest of the
So
class.
they'll count for the class participation. Okay, that's all I wanted to know.
Full credit.
Okay.
Full credit. Yes. Anything else? Okay. So as we get into the content, I have a quick exercise I want you to do with each other to start off our discussion of communication. I would like you momentarily to find one partner. If we have an odd number, we can put a group of 3 together. I would like one person to be the speaker, one person to be the listener, and then I would like the speaker to explain their career goals to the listener. Make sense? Okay, so let's everyone find a partner, identify the speaker, identify the listener. Let's see, does everyone have a partner? Good? Good. Okay, so why don't you, you two, walk as the speaker here. You'll be the speaker? Okay, so you're going to be the speaker, and Helen and Levi will be your listener. You'll have 2 listeners. Okay. Okay. So go ahead, take about 30-45 seconds to explain your career.
Yeah, maybe switch seats. So,
Yeah.
I see both of us. I could hear you. We're good.
So I'm saying
We start now?
Yeah, go ahead and start. Speaker, explain your career goals. Take 30-45 seconds to explain your career goals to the listener.
Sorry, what?
All right, everyone done? Good? Everyone done? Okay. Let's try it one more time, except this time, I would like the speaker to try to persuade the listener that they should have the same career goals as they have. So your goal is try to convince your listener to have your same career goals. Now, if you are successful at the end of 30-45 seconds, your listener will say, you know what, I should change. I'm going to change my career goals, and I'm going to do that. That's how we're going to measure success in this iteration of the exercise. All right, so you've got 45 seconds. Convince them to have your same career goals.
Very slow. Research and all of that.
There are many
All right, go ahead and wrap up. All right. Last digs and wrap up. All right. So, listeners, you just heard 2 presentations. What was your opinion? Was one better? Was one more engaging? One more informative? What's your impression of the 2 presentations you just heard?
I think the second one is very engaging because when she tried to convince us, it's so engaging.
Okay, more engaging when the speaker tried to convince, yes.
So the first one is like textbooks, like prepared.
Uh-huh.
The second one is more continuous, and then we have more context put together. And also
What more was it? Context?
Context.
Context, okay.
And also he have like highlights the like
know, what he really wants to do, and the second part, not really the first part.
So you like the second one more?
Right.
You like the highlights, what he really wants to do, what's important to him? You didn't like hearing the textbook?
Right.
Okay, yeah, all right. What else? Yes, now.
I think the first one was more factual,
Okay.
and why she wanted to do it.
Okay.
And the second one was more of a descriptive answer, like the reasonings behind it and why it appealed to her.
Okay, and which one did you
I like
like?
the second one
You
better.
like the second one more? Okay, great, Josh.
I think it's just building on the idea of the engagement of the second version. You know, it's a lot more engaging, to use the same word again, but when it's, you know, you and what we should do or how it works, you know, as opposed to just I, me.
We, I like that. So your listener, your speaker started to care about you, you know, what you can do together, all right, to get interested in it. Fantastic. So when you approach the audience with that kind of objective, it brings out that engagement. It brings out the highlights. It's not the textbook, it's not the facts. So when you have a purpose for speaking, it unleashes so much, and we're going to talk about that for a few minutes. Why we should focus on the audience when we speak, why we should choose an objective, and I'm going to talk about how an objective helps us. So first, why we should focus on the audience. So Josh brought it up at the end there. When the speaker tried to convince you, the speaker was concentrating on your needs perhaps, your aspirations, and trying to draw you in to have the same aspirations as them. And that's what we want to do when we speak. There's no other standard of whether or not we gave a good presentation than how our audience received it. If our audience received it well, that was a good presentation. There's not a committee of people like me who are judging you based on your body language, your eye contact. All that stuff is important, but it's all meant to affect and persuade or somehow inform your audience. So our audience, and whether or not they're receiving our presentation, has to be our focus. Sometimes that gets tough when we get nervous. Does anyone get nervous when they give a presentation? When you get nervous, you start thinking about, okay, let me go back to the facts in the textbook and let me just spit it out. But we want to focus on our audience and our audience enrichment if we want to have a positive presentation. So that's number one, why we should focus on the audience. Number two, why we should choose an objective. Now, first, let me just say as a disclaimer, when you're hanging out with your friends, just casually talking, you don't have to have an agenda, you don't have to have an objective. Although, there is some carryover. If when you're talking to your friends, they're constantly wondering, why are you talking and what is the point and how does this relate to me? And they're going to be less excited about listening to you next time. But what we're talking about now is some sort of business presentation. I want you to bring an objective to it. And the definition of objective is fairly simple. It might be to persuade, it might be to inform, to educate. Maybe you have a bunch of nervous employees and you want to calm them. You're thinking about your audience, thinking about what you want to do with them, for them, what the effect you want to have on them. It works well if you put it into a verb form, to persuade, to inform. It's an active thing to get you excited about that goal in your presentation. Now, I mentioned to you all earlier, I used to be an actor, and actors who are effective actors are constantly using this objective technique. And it's more obvious when I think about it in that context, because if you don't have an objective, if you don't have a purpose, should you be giving a presentation? No? I'd say no. There you have it. Your business communication teacher just told you you should stop talking. If you don't have a purpose for talking, there's no need to talk. And if you have some sort of thing you want to give back to your audience with, then that's what's going to make a difference in your presentation. Now, I mentioned, this is taken from my acting experience a minute ago. And if you're not working with an objective, then you're just saying lines. You're just saying the textbook. And we don't want to be the person who just stands up and just says lines. We want to be the person who tries to affect our audience. So lastly, how having an objective can help us. You mentioned engaged a lot, helps you engage. I'll break that down a little bit more. Helps us do three things. Forces us to try, forces us to monitor our audience, and forces us to adjust based on how we think our audience is receiving us. If we don't even have an objective, then you don't have to try. Like that first iteration of the exercise, the speaker may have been trying to convince you, may have been trying to inform you. There's nothing that motivated she or he to give an effective presentation. So try, monitor, and adjust. Let's look at those three real quickly. So first, try. These are all the things that you might think I'm going to teach you in this class. Audience characteristics. Let's think about who my audience is and how can I try to make a difference in their lives. Let me think about some body language techniques I'm going to use. Let me think about various other presentation skills I'm going to use. It all comes down to your audience. Those are all just techniques. Who your audience is, what their worldview is, what their frame of reference is. These are things that you want to think about as you're preparing your presentation the night before, week before, or as you're giving that presentation. Who is my audience? How am I going to convince them? How am I going to calm them? Empathy. Now, when you're thinking about affecting your audience, you might empathize with them. You're much more likely to feel their frustration, feel their pain, and think about how you can help them with whatever you're trying to present to them. Has anyone ever heard this quote before from Teddy Roosevelt? People don't care what you know until they know how much you care. If you're just spitting facts at them, then they're not going to be as interested in working with you. They're not going to be as interested in listening to you. Once you start to think about how you can affect your audience, they'll see in your eyes that you care. Content, how we're going to organize our stuff, our presentation. All right, am I going to give them the conclusion first, conclusion last? Am I going to tell them a story? Well, if you don't know what you're trying to accomplish, then deciding how you're going to organize your content doesn't really matter, right? Right? You have no purpose. What does it matter how you organize your slides? But if you think about what you're trying to accomplish, then you can use organizational skills to help you. Delivery, I mentioned body language, eye contact, all that stuff. You're not going to do it just because I teach you to do it in this class. You're going to do it because you're trying to affect your audience. Monitor. So as you're giving your presentation, I'm going to look at your audience. Are they convinced? Did anyone convince your listener to change their career goals?
I got a maybe.
Got a maybe?
Yeah.
So you got a maybe. So you were looking. You convinced your.
No. I think it's going to be a 50%. But I asked him not to fail me completely.
Okay, so 50% considered and maybe. So
I was.
you were successful. Okay. So Josh actually changed his career goal. That is fantastic. Or maybe we don't know what his career goal was to begin with. Maybe you just altered it slightly. So engaging with your audience, and you're going to monitor your success. This is going to help you with that empathy. Again, with the empathy. If we care about what's happening to your audience, you're going to be more engaged. If you see that your audience is confused and they don't understand what you're saying, you might slow down because you're trying to make them not confused. Situational awareness, you want to be aware of what's going on with your speech. Have you ever sat in the audience of someone who's giving a speech and you look at your colleagues and say, this speaker doesn't really understand what's going on. She doesn't really know that Rutgers is more of this kind of a business school, and we're into this, and she's talking about this. This manager expects us to show up for this time, and we all know that that's just a joke. As a speaker, you do not want to be that person. You want to be the person who's understanding the vibe in your audience. So when you approach the audience with an objective that brings out that quality. And adjusting. You want to be flexible. We're going to be spontaneous. We're going to bring out our creativity. How can we solve this problem? I've got this career goal I want you to have. I want you to work in marketing, but now you're in investment banking. How am I going to merge those two together. Well, what about investment banking relates to marketing and you don't have to work all the same hours, yada, yada. How can I bring that into my presentation? Again, people don't want just a canned speech with words. They want to know that you're on the spot adjusting to them. Authenticity. I'm going to give you that sense of authenticity. I thought about this concept a little bit when I was watching some of the Republican debates. Very exciting stuff. Exciting time for me as a presentation consultant to get to watch these presidential debates. And I was comparing the style that Donald Trump uses versus the style that Senator Marco Rubio uses. Senator Marco Rubio has this very elegant, eloquent, polished type of tone, type of way of delivering content. Compare that to Donald Trump, who just gives it to you raw. Donald Trump has more of a sense of authenticity based on that. And I'm not saying you should vote for Donald Trump, but I am saying that he brings that sense of authenticity because he's just talking to you, like you're right in front of him. You know, we need to make this country great. These guys are stupid. And Marco Rubio may have better, more sophisticated things to say, but so when we can,
I think Donald was kind of, maybe not problem-solving skills, but in his debate, you see like all of those, flexibility, spontaneity, and creativity a lot.
Yeah, he's just raw. He's just raw, and he knows how to engage. TV personality, he understands so many things about communication that I think are helping him. All right, anxiety management. So let's talk about this idea of using an objective to control anxiety. I asked you all earlier if anyone gets nervous when they make a presentation. A lot of you said yes. That's very common. When pollsters ask people what are they scared about, what do they get most nervous about? Does anyone know, or has anyone ever heard? Actually, I'll just tell you. Public speaking is often number one. Number one thing people are scared of. Does anyone know what number two is? Death. Right. So number one is public speaking. Number two is dying. So you would rather die than give a presentation. It seems sometimes.
Well, to put it more bluntly, you'd rather be the one in the coffin than the one giving the
eulogy. Yes. I feel like I've heard that. Yeah, absolutely. So scared. You don't want to stand up and give a presentation. Why do you get nervous? Why does that happen?
Most of the time it's the fear of the unknown. You're not sure how the message is going to come across. There might be distractors in the room or things that are happening that you can kind of tell when you're losing the audience, and that makes you, your nervous tics tend to come out because you're trying to grab their attention back again.
Yes. All right. So you're losing their audience, but what's going to fear of the unknown? Like, what's the bad thing that could happen that you're nervous about?
That you don't meet your objective. You're up there for a reason, and the fear of what if I go up there and I didn't accomplish what I went up there for.
All right. That's interesting. You said that. All right. Let's come back to that. Priya?
I was going to say, you don't know the audience sometimes, and there might be somebody else who's much more knowledgeable than you on the topic that you're talking about.
Okay. All right.
And
So
you might think that, hey, I'm just going to make a fool.
Yes. Okay. So someone who knows more than you is going to say that you're not good. Right? That's something that makes you nervous. They're going to say your professional credentials are not that good. So that's something to be scared about. Natalie?
That you'll get up there and draw a blank.
Okay. What would happen if you draw a blank? If I could just stop talking right now, what are you guys going to do?
You lose your audience. You just start rambling.
Okay. Yeah. Where I'm going with that is your audience will think you didn't do a good job, right? Lose your professional credibility.
I think it's being put up on the stage and all the attention is then drawn towards you, and every little thing you say, do, or movement is judged by everybody.
Judged. Okay, that's it. Judged. Judged professionally, judged socially. You're afraid of being judged. Professional failure, professional incompetence is a pretty scary thing to think about. Socially, if I stand up here and don't give a good presentation, people aren't going to want to be friends with me. It's a pretty scary thing to think about as well. Now, the worst case scenario doesn't happen for the most part, but we easily can go when we get anxious to that scary place of, oh my God, I'm going to look like a fool up here. So how do we get over that? How do we deal with that fear of professional failure, fear of social isolation?
After a joke, just pretend you're talking to a bunch of cabbages.
Okay, okay, all right. Way to make your audience seem a little more friendly, perhaps. I don't know, are cabbages friendly? All right, yes.
I know the day of my PhD thesis defense, my advisor said, in that room, remember, nobody knows better than you in that topic. So
right.
that sort of boosts your confidence.
Yes, yes.
I will sort of say the same thing as Priya.
Mhm.
Where whatever you are presenting, except for 2 or 3 people, no one knows as much as you.
Yes, so that person in the audience who might know a little bit more than you, there are 2 or 3 people, they're probably not in the room. So you don't need to get nervous unless they're. What else?
For me, it's a matter of preparation. So the more that I'm confident about what I'm talking about, the better my posture is, the more relaxed I am up there, the more engaging I am, because I want you to challenge me so that I can show how much better I really do.
Yes, yes.
So, yes, it's a matter of preparation.
Good stuff, all great stuff. Definitely use all those techniques. One technique that I like, that I think works really well, is make the presentation about your audience and about the objective. This is how we can use the objective stuff that we've gone over to lessen anxiety. So when you get nervous about being judged, you're thinking about yourself, your professional credentials, and what do we do when we get nervous? Do we focus more on the audience, or do we focus more on the textbook, just spitting it out, saying the lines? It's kind of a jilted question, I apologize. The answer I'm looking for is we tend to focus more on just saying the words, just saying the lines, just giving the textbook speech when we get nervous. So anxiety causes us to focus on ourselves and focus on the words of the language of the speech. Now what if, instead of focusing on ourselves and the language of speech, we were focused on the audience? And we didn't care so much about getting every word right, but what we did care about was accomplishing our objective. So focusing on the objective like that helps us with our presentations. Those 2 ways gets us focused outward and on our audience, on the thing that matters. So it takes our mind off the thing that we're most scared about and leaves less room for us to get nervous about it. That makes sense? Great. Got next here. So we want to think about how we can take this objective discussion and bring it to our business presentations. Let me ask you, what types of presentations do you all give as business students? What types of presentations did you give before you came to business school? What types of presentations do you hope to give after you get out of business school? What types of presentations are we working with where we can think about bringing this objective to it?
Persuasive presentations.
Persuasive presentations, yeah, but more like what types of presentations? Financial reports, what do you?
I used to give a lot of technical presentations because I was an engineer or scientist. However, after business school, I had to give presentations that impact business, finance, supply chain,
Okay.
technology.
Okay, so that's it. Very good. Anything else? Yes.
Analyzing data, that will give a conclusion for analyzing data.
Okay. All right. Fantastic. So, some ideas of some presentations you might be giving. Let me ask you this. What are your objectives as an MBA student, either in presentations you give now or presentations you hope to give when you graduate? Is your goal when you get up there to present data, explain data, present conclusions? Which of those 3 do you like the best? Present conclusions, yes.
Using the present data.
Yes, using the data as a tool. The discussion I will often have with technical analysts is that you all are at a point in your careers where the audience is going to be looking to you for the conclusion. You're not someone who's just going to list data. I want you to think about how you can take all this data, think about what the conclusion is, and use it to accomplish your objective. So objective, you want to present conclusions, sell conclusions, use conclusions. So now we're transitioning into how we can keep our objective as a presenter and use conclusions as the primary tool. Is everyone with me on that? Does anyone want to argue with me and say, my job is not to present conclusions, it's just to list data? Does anyone want to say that? No, no one wants to say that. Yes.
The only thing I'll say, conclusion itself doesn't do its job. I mean, you really need to rationalize why you're coming to that conclusion. So, yeah, you need to get back up your conclusion.
So what do you need? You need a conclusion. What do you need to make a strong conclusion? Let's have that discussion right now. What is a strong conclusion?
How did you reach to that point? I mean, you need to...
Backed up with facts.
Right, exactly.
Facts, evidence, logic. All right, so you put the facts together, you have a logical way of reaching that conclusion. All right, so we got constructing a conclusion. We talked about using this conclusion to achieve our objective. Conclusion definition, if anyone needs it. Conclusion examples. Let's take a look at these conclusions, see if we like them. Conclusion. Investing in the pipeline project will put our company at an unacceptable level of risk. Is that a good conclusion? Is that a conclusion? What?
It's a conclusion.
Yeah, it's a conclusion. Okay, it's a conclusion. We'll stop right there. How about this one? The data shows an upward trend of 4%.
Data.
Is that a conclusion?
No.
Well, it could possibly be if that's the whole point to the exercise. Look at all this data and tell me which way it's going. But I'm thinking this is more of an example of we need to ask the question: what does that upward trend of 4% mean? Does that mean we should invest? Does that mean we should get out of this business? Does that mean we should sell everything? That's the conclusion that I would suggest you all, as MBA students, might be drawing. You're going to be less likely to be the person who says, all right, based on Bloomberg, we've got up 2%, down whatever, and those are the facts. Now you do with it whatever you want.
But I'm not convinced on that though, because let's say your job was actually given to you as an analyst just to go and look at this data set and come up with a conclusion. I mean, you're probably not being asked. So it all depends on what you're being asked for to do.
Okay.
That could be a conclusion by itself if that was the task given to you.
All right. Data shows an upward trend of 4%.
I mean, if they're not asking for your opinion on whether we should invest or not.
Okay. So technically, yes.
Yeah, that's what I realize. Yeah.
Yes. You can say the premise, the evidence is that in 2015, sales were $100 billion. Premise 2, in 2016, sales were $104 billion. So the conclusion is the data shows an upward trend of 4%. But I'm looking for something bigger than that. I'm looking for something more meaningful to the audiences that I think you present to. They're going to say, wow, you're the one who's the expert on this data. You tell me what that means. Because I can put that in Excel and tell that it goes up 4%. Anyone can. But your value is to tell me what it means. What's the takeaway? Next. I have 6 years of accounting experience and I've completed my CPA. Is that a good conclusion? No, it is not. How about this? I'm an excellent candidate for the job.
Yes.
Yes, that is a good conclusion. What do you think? Yes.
I think it is a conclusion, but it's not a really, appropriate way of saying it. Because normally at job interviews, I don't think describing yourself as an excellent candidate will make a good impression.
Oh, okay. Are you also might you be suggesting? What if you said I have 6 years? What if you said both these together? You're still excellent. All right, I guess it's a little abrasive, but it still is a good conclusion.
It is a conclusion. I agree.
All right, this is not a conclusion. What does it mean? What should I take from that? What am I gonna hire you to do my accounting? Are you gonna tutor my kids? Do you want me to write you a letter of reference?